Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack. And tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Sacramento Kings for the second time this season. Now, in the first matchup, as I'm sure you guys remember, the Cavs were bombarded, absolutely bombarded by the Kings starting lineup, as 4 out of the 5 starters scored 20 or more points. I like to put that out of my head. I don't remember that happening. At least that's what I'm telling myself. But it did, in fact, happen. They were led by De'Aaron Fox's 28 and Domantas Sabonis's near triple-double. The Cavs ended up losing that one 132 to 120 at the Golden One Center. Tonight, the Cavs got the advantage of playing at home at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, where they've had a lot of home cooking this season. They are 18-8 at home so far. I was really honestly wondering how the Cavs would contain the likes of Sabonis, who despite putting up averages of 19.9 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists, which is absolutely absurd for a man his size, right? Just the position that he plays. It's absurd that he was not named to the Western Conference All-Star team. That man is such a phenomenal basketball player, one of the most versatile big men in the NBA, and capable of hurting you in many, many ways. It just shows and goes to speak to the level of just depth and talent that this NBA has. This era, man, it's just such a deep and talented league where you have guys putting up stat lines like that, where it's just him and Jokic that are averaging 8 or more assists as bigs. It's insane what he's been able to do. And tonight was another big game from him. 12 points, 19 rebounds, and 15 assists. A big man, a center, dished out 15 assists. Now, we had our own big man do that, but goddamn, he was impressive. He was impressive. So I got to give props where props is due. I'm going to talk about the Cleveland side of things, but I just have to lead off with how impressed I continue to be with the players like Sabonis. And if Evan Mobley develops into that type of offensive talent, geez, man, I would absolutely love to see it, especially the facilitation. Yeah. Tune in says down here, damn, remember when the Cavs couldn't beat the Kings? Welp, yeah. I mean, they couldn't beat them the last time they played them. As I said to open the episode, the Kings had 4 starters score 20 or more points the first time these two teams faced off this season. Just they have a lot of offensive firepower, and they're not terrible defensively, but they're more so known for their offense. They can put up points at the drop of a hat. They scored 110 in the loss tonight. TuneIn also says Cavs number 2 in the East. That is something, as I talked about on the last pod, this team, man, climbing up to that 2 seed, I always felt like it was possible. I do not feel like they're going to be able to catch Boston, although anything is possible. Boston is 5, 6 games ahead. I don't think that they're going to be able to catch them, but man, they are making me feel really good about their chances to stay in that one of those top 2 seeds. Absolutely phenomenal performance tonight on both sides of the ball. But I got to say, man, I was really, really impressed from a defensive standpoint. Anytime you could limit the Kings to 110 points, I consider that a victory. And then on offense, you put up 136 points in a pretty spread out effort. All 5 starters scored in double figures, led by Donovan Mitchell's 29 points, of course. Just absolutely phenomenal offensive basketball. You had Isaac Okoro, Caris LeVert also scoring double figures off the Cavalier bench as well. But probably the performance tonight that had me the most hype was Mack Strus, because we all know he's been catching a lot of shit, a lot of flack from the fan base for his shooting slump. And he has now had back-to-back performances in which he has shot the ball very, very efficiently. Tonight, he scored 22 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, and that's an aspect of his game that is just not – I feel like people are not putting enough love and respect on that, because those rebounds out of that 3 position, that is something that really hurt the Cavs last year. They did not get a lot of rebounding out of the starting 3 last year between Isaac Okoro and Caris LeVert. And the way that he's able to out-hustle opponents for rebounds or go out there and just give his all from a defensive standpoint, even when he is not shooting the ball particularly well, those 2 things combined with the above average level of playmaking that you're also getting from him is something that makes it makes his addition worthwhile, even if the shot is not falling. Clearly tonight, that was not the case as he dropped 6 triples on the Kings' head. And I love it. I want to say over his last 2 games, he has now hit 8 triples. And we know how much of a struggle it's been for him lately. So to see him completely bust that slump, that speaks volumes to me about the work that he's been able to put in and just having that short-term memory, because he has just not been shooting that ball consistently this year. And one of the things that I continue to point out as that slump was going on is, hey, a lot of this has to do with the absence of Darius Garland and him taking on a bigger offensive role because of that. And I think that the fact that he has been able to just circumvent it by providing in other areas has made up for the slump. And to see him go out there and just play, just play, just friendly team basketball and just carefree and have fun out there. I love it, man. And you can tell that he has that mindset, that, that winning mindset coming from the Miami Heat. So I love it, man. One of the better offseason additions that this team has made, and I am glad that he is a Cavalier. Only played 26 minutes tonight, by the way, and so you absolutely love that. Dr. Claus says that play where Max got a free 3 was hilarious. Yeah, I mean, not a sequence that I envisioned happening prior to the start of the game, and that's just comical. It was definitely hilarious to see him drop 22 points though, and 26 minutes. Phenomenal. Back-to-back games, seems to have his mojo back, and I hope he continues to roll. Conversely, how can I go any further without talking about where that slump apparently may have moved to? And that is George Niang. George Niang is not shooting the basketball well right now. But despite that, the Cavs are still getting good production out of the bench as a whole. And yes, Tom K, as I just said, Strus passed the slump to he passed the slump to Niang like it was a disease or something. On some Space Jam stuff. I don't know, man. But this is something to monitor, I suppose, because I believe the one matchup off that bench, not matchup rather, but role battle and minutes battle that I was really looking forward to was Niang versus Wade. Like, as the team returns to full strength, as Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, who continue to be on minutes restrictions, both played 28 minutes tonight, by the way. And as those minute totals continue to go up, I wonder to myself, what does that mean for Dean Wade and George Niang? Because those two are the guys that are benefiting the most from Evan Mobley not playing his normal complement of minutes, right? Normal starters minutes. And so with Wade moving back to the bench and Niang already being there, what would that mean? And for me, the thing that I've continued to say is, as long as Dean Wade can shoot the ball confidently and pull the fucking trigger whenever the shot is available to him, he probably can steal some of Niang's minutes, especially if Niang isn't necessarily shooting the ball too well, because Wade is also a much, much better rebounder and defender. And so Wade is doing that. Another night in which he just knocks down more triples, doing so efficiently. Only took 2 shot attempts on the night. And, coming off that bench, that's probably going to be the case more often than not, where he is not getting a high amount of shot attempts. But when you do have them, you have to be efficient with them. And as long as he's doing that, he's probably going to continue to steal some of Niang's minutes. Now, tonight, the minutes distribution was equal. They each played 15 minutes. But Niang, if the slump continues, I could absolutely see Wade taking all of those minutes in an effort for JB to get more guys involved. Now, I've continued to see comments throughout here already talking about how JB's rotations were great. Lord Luke right here in particular says, JB's rotations are great, man. I'm not going to lie. Everybody eating, and DG and Mobley having bought into their new roles, I believe. Hashtag second seed. Yeah, I mean, the rotations were wonderful tonight. And I think one of the things that has allowed, as much as people don't want to admit this, if you're going to, for people who are poo-pooing on JB last year because of the rotations, it was because of the lack of depth, right? The lack of depth that we did not have. We couldn't space the floor. You had nobody you could really trust off the bench outside of Karis LeVert and maybe Jetty at certain points. That was really it. I mean, there just wasn't too many people off that Cavalier bench that you could trust. It really showed and played out in the postseason in that series against the Knicks. This year, due to those injuries, which, I can't lie, I'm not going to mince words here. The injuries did kind of force JB's hand, but that's not a bad thing, right? It did force JB to go deeper into his rotation. It forced other guys out there to take on larger roles. And now we've seen that they can handle them. And it's opened the door for other guys who previously were thought of as really just not heavy contributors have really gained footing on being able to do that, right? They have turned into valuable contributors. Players like Sam Merrill, who may only see anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes a night in this new look Cavs roster in rotation, can still be a threat, right? And speaking of Merrill, he scored 9 points tonight on 3 of 4 shooting. And I continue to say this, like him coming off of screens, him being able to shoot that basketball as one of the last guys off the bench. That's a strong and powerful thing to have at your disposal. That's not something that Cleveland could say last year. And so when you have games like this where, it's a blowout, right? You love to see everybody going out there and eating. You love to see everybody getting an opportunity to play because everybody did. Nobody played less than 3 minutes tonight. Damian Jones and Craig Porter Jr. actually took the floor against the Kings of all teams. Like this isn't some weakling team. It's really and truly a real threat out there in that Western Conference in the Sacramento Kings, who gave the Cavs fits earlier this year. So big time performance. I think this team is the deepest team in basketball, if not among the top 5 deepest teams in the NBA. And so I'll continue to shout that from the rooftops, just like I continue to feel like this team is a legitimate title contender. Can't tell me otherwise. I get it. For a lot of people, the opinions are not going to change until the postseason rolls around. And that's a valid point. I understand that. So I'm not going to try and sway you any kind of way. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. I feel like this team, with its makeup, with the coaching having improved, I feel like it's a title contender. I feel like they can go out there and compete with any team in the East. I feel like in a 7-game series that includes Boston, I do not feel discouraged about having to face off against anybody, including the Knicks. And we all know that's the series that I want to see. I need to see that. I need to see that rematch, frankly. I would love to see it. Forever King MVP says this version of the team can contend. Yeah. I mean, we saw it the other night when Evan Mobley dropped multiple triples. And although Evan did not do that tonight, we'll talk about him in a minute. He had another phenomenal performance. And I think that guys having had to step up earlier in the season with the absences of Darius, with the absence of Evan, really everybody has missed time at certain points this year, including Donovan and Isaac. Having to do that will have you go deep into your bag of the rotation and just expand the roster as a whole and just take you out of your comfort zone. And so I just feel like this team is miles ahead of where they were last year. A lot of things have changed, including JB Bickerstaff. I feel like JB has legitimately improved. So just in regards to contention, I don't think that you can change a lot of people's minds. Like that series swayed a lot of people negatively and made them feel like, you know what, it's about the postseason now. No matter what the Cavs do in the regular season, I will not trust this team to contend, or I will not trust this team to go deep into the playoffs until I see it. And that's a valid standpoint, and I get that. But from what I'm seeing, man, I can't help but be happy. I really cannot. I really cannot. Tune in says, I don't think the Cavs should trade no one. I am more confident in this squad going past the trade deadline than last season when we knew we should have did something but didn't. We got options now. Yeah, and I was saying this on social just earlier today or yesterday. I am at a point right now where I do not believe that this team has to do anything, and I'm okay with that. And I could not say that in previous seasons, including last year, where I felt like the Cavs probably should do something, but I was also okay if they didn't, as long as they went the buyout, the buyout route, which is also an option this year. If somebody gets dropped and they kind of fit what we have going on here, I would assume that Kobe Altman will be working all angles. I am not expecting a move at this deadline, although we know with Kobe, anything is possible in that regard, a move on the margins. I know that there's reports after report that, teams are interested in Isaac Okoro. Um, that is not going to happen, right? We're not giving Isaac up. And I get that the contractual obligations are something to take note of, right? Him entering restricted free agency and the tax implications that it could have for this team moving forward. Those are all things that should concern people, but that should not worry you enough to think that the Cavs are going to move on from Isaac Okoro midseason. It's just not going to happen. And so with that, the only other guy that I could possibly see maybe drawing interest is Karis LeVert, and I don't think they would be agreeable to moving him short of a small haul, considering what he's been able to bring to this Cavaliers bench. So I don't think there is a move out there that needs to be made. I see Forever King down here just mentioned the backup big spot. He says the only thing I could see them doing is trying to get a backup big, depending upon how you feel about Damian, who has been solid. I don't know what will happen with Tristan. And so this is what I believe, King. I feel like Tristan Thompson, he's now, what's it been, 3 or 4 games since he's been suspended? He'll be back, and I think it was March 16th? It's a pretty far out date, but he'll be back before the regular season ends, and he was giving really good minutes, and we know why that probably was with the PEDs he was taking, but I still think he has something left in the tank to give. In regards to Damian Jones, I feel like the Cavs, at the reality of the situation is it's completely dependent upon the matchups, right? There are going to be nights like tonight where Damian Jones really I don't think he actually, but no, Damian played 3 minutes. The Cavs are not always going to play with a true backup 5 with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen back out there. It's just not going to happen because they have the benefit of going small. When you can play Niang, when you can play Wade, and both of those guys can knock down the 3 ball, although Niang is slumping heavily right now. And then you got Sam Merrill out there, and you got Karis and Okoro, right? Guys who are capable of knocking down the 3-point shot. Playing a traditional 5 who cannot consistently space the floor off your bench is not something that's going to have to happen every single night outside of a matchup-based purpose, right? If you're playing the New York Knicks, a team that employs Mitchell Robinson when healthy and Isaiah Hardenstein, guys like that with true big body types, yeah, it helps to have Tristan. It helps to have Damian out there. But if you can help it, more often than not, it probably behooves the Cavs to not play those guys because they have guys who can play in their stead, right? You can stagger the Allen and Mobley minutes around that so that you have a true center on the floor at all times if need be. And that's just the way I feel about it. I don't think the Cavs even have to address that because I just don't think it would be worth what you would be shipping out. I think you just, let everybody get healthy, let DG, let Evan head into the All-Star break and lift their minutes restrictions and see what you have and hammer out your rotations as the season moves forward. Because the reality of the situation is not everybody who deserves minutes is going to be able to play, but that's not a bad thing. It is far from a bad thing because that just means that this team is deep and that you can get away with a lot of different looks, especially if certain guys are not on certain nights. I look at tonight's game as a litmus test, and the litmus test is, can this Cavs team compete with the big names out in the West? And I feel like it's true. I feel like they can beat anybody. Now, the Kings are not exactly, the Oklahoma City Thunder or Minnesota Timberwolves sitting here at 35 and 15 each, but they're a damn good team in their own right. And Cleveland, this team just continues to impress me. Win after win after win after win against big time opponents, against teams that they probably should beat. It really just doesn't matter who the opponent is. The Cavs are going out there and they're giving their best effort. Definitely a statement win, as Jay Quest says down here. I loved it, man. And I just don't know. I can't really single out anybody in particular because the performances were just so great from top to bottom. I guess I can really mention the Evan Mobley stat line here: 11 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. Yes, 7 assists from your starting power forward center in Evan Mobley's, who I don't know, man. What can you say about Evan Mobley that hasn't already been said? Phenomenal talent, whole bunch of potential still. I don't get why people wanted to trade him. It's laughable, right? I'm not going to delve too deeply into that tonight, but I love it, man. The team is in a good place, and as long as they can keep it moving forward, there's no reason to truly doubt this team. Just truly, truly impressive. Tom K says, Spida passing to himself off of backboard. Yeah. See, when you see shit like that at a basketball game that, the guys are just having fun. The vibes are immaculate, as we often heard so much last year, right? The vibes just are all the way turned up right now. And when you see Donovan out there doing stuff like that, it adds to the fun. And I love it. Dunan says, and put him on the bench, they said. Yeah, I mean, this is in reference to Patrick Clare saying, great to see aggressive Mobley. I never understood that, right? Like, people are saying that Dean Wade should start over Evan Mobley. Like, the rationale for it is obvious, right? The spacing. People are saying, keep playing Dean Wade in the starting unit because Evan Mobley cannot consistently space the floor. Dean Wade's doing that. Why fix what isn't broken? Because that's what was occurring during that winning streak, right? And that the rationale is, if you're talking about any other player, right? If you're talking about a different type of player, maybe you have a point. But Evan Mobley is so damn versatile, and he's just so damn impactful on both ends of the floor, even without that 3-point shot, that you have to play him. He has that much potential. And we saw in the game the other night where he knocked down 3 triples that, he can do it. He just has to be aggressive enough to pull the trigger. He has to take the shots when they're afforded to him. And what ended up happening the other night is the team did not respect his ability to do that. They played off of him, and he dropped them. And while he only attempted, I believe, 1 3-point shot tonight, he didn't necessarily need to continue to do that because he was being able to do other things out there. Joseph Nees says, AC stresses me out more than any court play. Makes me think we'll blow it. I don't know. I love AC, man. He can be an oddball with certain calls, but more often than not, I always love the broadcast just because it brings me joy to hear him on the call. Forever King MVP says they said bring Mobley off the bench. The fan base was tripping. Yeah, I mean, who hasn't? This team has some very, very, very funny fans. The fan base is hilarious because there's always a discourse surrounding a certain player. Like, if Darius Garland is the fact that Darius Garland just came off his injuries and has come back a little bit slow. Teams are ready to trade him out the door. For Evan Mobley, they're ready to move him to the bench. For Jarrett Allen, they were saying trade him. He was really the biggest target this offseason. Everybody was piling on the Jarrett Allen train, and look at what he's doing now. And the funny thing is, people act like they didn't say anything or just walk it back and say, "Oh, well, I thought he was capable. I needed to see it first." Stuff like that. Nah. Stay on that side, right? I kid, but in all actuality, it just feels like this team is coming together at the right moment. And I'm not saying they're peaking or anything like that, because we haven't seen, I believe, the best version of them just yet. But I do believe that they have hit a really good stretch of basketball. And if they keep this thing going, the sky's the limit. It really is. As long as they can play as a team, as long as everybody can understand their roles. And I know that JB is still trying to work that out. I feel good. And that's probably where I should leave it at, right? Like I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. If you are listening to the It's Cavalier podcast for the first time, if you're streaming the episode for the first time on YouTube, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing. You never know what you might see here. I drop Cavs content pretty frequently, and you might enjoy what you find. That said, have a good night.